My name is Dayanita Singh. Photography is my medium, but I want to twist it and turn it till I find the forms that are appropriate for those images. So it's never just about images, it's always about creating a form which could be a book or a book object or a museum or a pillar like a totem, which is what I'm showing in Venice. And I think it's because I don't like the way photography is shown in museums, and I want it to be something that is constantly changing. I think museums need to keep shifting a little bit so that people come again and again. So they need to change, they need to surprise people, they need to be more organic. And I hate how photography becomes fossilized behind glass in a museum. So that's quite a strong urge for me when it comes to creating these structures. You know, I don't want to be a print on your wall, and I don't want to be a book in your bookshelf. I want that space in between and to keep changing that space. So in some sense, I don't know how I would describe myself. An artist, an offset artist, a bookmaker. So I don't think of it as display. I think of it more like sculpture, and that the image is part of that form. So the whole thing becomes, I could have called them photo sculptures, but I didn't want to take from another medium. So I call it photo architecture. But it's very much based on the images and how I want to show the work. So for example, if I had prints on the wall, there's very little space here that I could show them in. But I have these totems that could stand exactly where I'm sitting. And maybe that's how we will show one of the pillars, you know, one here, one there, one on the landing, so that, I mean, it's early days, but I'm thinking of the exhibition at MAO to be like a treasure hunt, where you come and you would get a map, and you have to, if you want to look at Palermo, you have to go to the 3rd floor corner room. If you want to look at Naples, then you have to come to the Gandhara room. And so that there's another layer added to, and since it's all my archive from Italy for 25 years, it's very interesting for me, even in an Indian gallery where I would often not want to be, that it's interesting to show my work from Italy, you know, because we've had a lot of Italian artists come to India and make fantastic work, but not so often that we've had an artist from India so dedicated to Italy. And I think that's what Andrea Anastasio, the curator, likes so much. And I didn't even realize that I had this archive of 25 years, because I wasn't photographing Italy, I was photographing my friends and the worlds they led me to. And then as I got interested in the archive, which started in Italy in 2001 when I went to the Corsini archive in Florence. That's the first time I thought. Then I worked a lot with archives in India. And 10 years ago I started to photograph in archives in Italy. And I love the archive in Torino. And there's a room which has all the rolls, and that's what I photographed the most. And you'll see it in the Torino pillars. It's almost, one of the pillars is entirely dedicated to the Torino archive. So in Venice, I show these 15 pillars of my Italian archive of 25 years, clustered around cities. So there's 3 pillars of Venice, 3 of Rome, 2 of Torino, 1 of Palermo, 1 of, you know, like that. But they are all built to be changed. And so as I photograph more and more, maybe there will be 5 pillars from Torino, and 6 pillars from Rome, and maybe the others will disappear, or we'll just add, or we might mix them. We might say, actually, it so happens that I photographed sort of Gandharan sculpture because, of course, we are also drawn to it in different cities. So could there be a pillar of Gandharan sculpture in Italy, for example? So that's how I like to work, you know. It's like on a large table, you have these hundreds of images, and then you're in this room and you think, actually, I do have, and I do. And could that be a pillar of all the Gandharan sculpture I photographed in Italy? Like, what is it doing here? But I've also photographed it in India. So as I'm talking to you, a project is developing because I've made my photography so elastic and not confined to folders. I don't have an Italy folder, I don't have a Torino folder, but I've created those pillars based on the city just as a way to get started. Or I suddenly realized in Venice, I haven't made a pillar of my chairs, and I have so many portraits of chairs. And that's why I came to Italy in the first place, to look for Renaissance chairs. And Pierana Cavalchini from the Gardner Museum in Boston brought me to Florence looking for chairs. And the person, Fausto, who took me to see the chairs, took me to the Corsini archive. So, you know, there's a strong connection with Italy in my work that I've only realized now. And of course, like people say about India, I just feel so at home. I see archives as our future, and the people who look after our archives, who look after our past for our future, the archivists, are invaluable people in society. And yet, we see no celebration of them. They work so much in the background. And I don't know, maybe I was an archivist in my last birth, but I just feel at home in an archive. And I feel deeply moved by an archive. An archive which is sitting in the same architecture. When the archive moves, the spirit of it changes. It becomes more information. But like in Venice or in Torino, when it's been sitting in the same place, a sedimentation happens and it seeps into the floor. And so in Venice, the pillars looked like they had grown out of the floor, you know? So it's the archive for the future, it's the archivist, and it's how the archive permeates into the architecture. The first archivist in my life was my mother. She loved to photograph, but not just to photograph. Each child had an album, and every photograph was placed there chronologically and labeled. And then when she met my father, she found a lot of photographs of him lying around in the house. And she was really annoyed, so she put them together and made an album, put her photograph on the last page, because this was photographs of him dancing with different white women. So she didn't know who was a lover, who was just someone he met at a dinner. She put her picture on the last page, but on the cover she wrote, I found all these photographs carelessly thrown in the house. Hey, some respect for photography at least. So she just, all her life has archived, and so even when she got involved, was pulled into, not got involved into a lot of litigation, everything was color-coded. She would tie them in bundles of different colors. So she knew if it was a green bundle, it had to do with farmland. Black meant taxes. So the idea of archiving things is not new to me. And in a way, what does one do as a photographer? You're also creating an archive. And if you were to ask me, what is the future of photography? For me, the future of photography really is the archivist. It's the photographer taking on different subjects and recording, documenting, like an archivist. 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, 50 years, you know. I photographed Zakir Hussain for 40 years. I photographed Mona for 30 years. So to me, that's the value of the work, that I can, because no medium can hold photography like, can hold time like photography does. No medium can hold time like photography does. And so that's what makes the role of the photographer as the archivist really valuable in times to come, even though everyone is photographing. But there is a certain obsessive quality with which photographers work, you know. So it's like now, already I'm thinking, I have to ask Davide to give me a list of all the museums in Italy that might have Gandharan sculpture, because how amazing would it be to bring that here?